Hey, how's it going? This is Resident of Colorwood for YouTube. Joel Sains. That's my buddy Dymowski. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Alan Gallant. Um, and I don't know how they'll appear to you on once this is recorded and uploaded, but I know how they're appearing to me. Um, so there's
A
that.
dream to
Yeah,
some,
yeah,
a
yeah.
nightmare
Jewel
to
has been,
others.
yeah, Jewel has been partaking tonight, shall we say?
No. Okay, guys, the mark of Zorro. First of all, I usually ask when you guys first saw something, so I'm going to change it up a bit.
All right.
Did you? Because I never read any of the Zorro written books, comics, or etc. So, did you read Zorro first, or did you watch Zorro first?
I watched Zorro first. My first Zorretic experience was Guy Williams.
Oh,
And
every,
the
Yeah,
Disney
mine too.
Zorros, which I love. I
Mhm.
really love those a lot.
Was that
Yeah,
the
he
top-
brought the flash and panache. He definitely did that. Plus the masculinity at the same time. So he was cool beans. That was my first experience with Zorro, was syndicated Zorro on local television when I was a kid.
Yeah, mine too. And then there was a Filmation did a Saturday morning cartoon in like the late 70s, early 80s. So I think they did the Zorro Lone Ranger Hour or something like
Yeah,
that.
they did.
Yeah, they did.
They did. I remember that.
I remember when Nick at Night would show Zorro, early in the morning too.
Yep.
Oh, as I was growing up and watching it at my grandparents' house, and
Zoroastrianism.
yeah, I thought the character was cool. I'm like, that character is cool. That character is really, really cool. I saw the movie I saw this movie, I think a month before the Antonio Banderas movie, if my memory is correct, because it was
Spy
on.
Kids?
No, the Mark of Zorro. So, guys, when did you first see this movie here?
A couple of days ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember seeing it before a couple days ago. I do think that it's possible that I saw it at some point.
Yeah.
Again, syndicated local television, you know.
On a double
Yeah, I
feature
mean-
with War Paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw it first time when I was a kid. And I think it was, there's a local show called Family Classics, hosted by a gentleman named Fraser Thomas, who was a very kind, very gentle, very soft-spoken. He did a lot of children's television. He was kind of like, he'd be like if Patrick were not bitter and cynical, very gentle, very, and they would always do movies based on like popular, like literature, like they did War of the Worlds, they did Mysterious Island, and this was always in the rotation. So this is when I first saw it, and yeah, it's kind of a movie that I revisit every once in a while.
Cool. What did
I
you
was
guys?
disappointed when I tuned in. I saw the credits. I thought Eugene Pallette would be playing Zorro.
Oh, that's common. Everybody does that.
I am Don
Everybody.
Diego.
That'd be great.
It's that voice, man. Jeez.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I just thought of my man Godfrey when I saw him in this movie. I mean, because I think that was my first exposure to him.
I normally date women who smoke so much they sound like Eugene Pallette.
That's right. That's right.
I think they're women.
It's a hallmark of having well lived, you know.
Yes.
You know.
When I rewatched this, the one thing I went back and did is went and rewatched some of the episodes of the Amazon Zorro, which is really, really good. I think
Now, the Amazons, is that played by Sybil Danning?
It must be.
no, the Amazon Zorro TV series, which is
That's it.
really good.
Wears a mask and nothing else.
Tyrone Powell, I think, really gets the character. He does a really great
Power. Tyrone Power.
Mhm.
He does a really great job. Just being this. I love how he pulls the double character here. He knocks Zorro as the arrogant rich guy, or at least that's what he's trying to deceive his enemies with.
Yes.
And then he's very brave as Zorro. And it's a trope you're gonna see in superhero movies, but
Going back to Scarlet Pimpernel.
right,
Alter egos.
he nails it. I mean, absolutely, he nails this.
Yeah, and the person you have to
I have a
think for
question.
this.
Does this predate Scarlet Pimpernel, or is this after Scarlet Pimpernel?
This Jackson McCauley wrote Curse of Capistrano in 1919, which is the first Zorro story. So this would be, and I think Scarlet Pimpernel was like 1905.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought Pimpernel was earlier. Yeah.
But Macaulay, if all he ever did was Zorro, he'd earn his place in kind of pop culture history.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, he was a pulp writer. He wrote a lot of westerns, but he's also very much he set a lot of the standards for what we would call superheroes, because he not only did that, he created a ton of characters that you've never heard of, but kind of helped set the idea of the Mass Avenger. He created a similarly themed Western character called the Whirlwind, except he had a whip rather than a sword. He created a masked crime fighter called the Green Ghost, which is a disgraced cop, who gets caught from the crime. He's disgraced because he's accused of a false crime. And the Green Ghost, basically, his gimmick is the cops don't like him because they think he's a criminal. The criminals don't like him because he messes up their stuff.
Sure.
He created a character called the Man in Purple, who's basically a guy who dressed up in a very special purple suit. And what he would do is, the gimmick was he had this purple suit. He could destroy it if like a cop was chasing me, go somewhere, take it off, and he could destroy it with special chemicals. So nobody ever knew who he was. He created characters called the Avenging Twins, which is, and he also created one called the Crimson Clown, which is one of his later ones. And it's in the stories, it's like a guy with a mask and red. But I like to think that there's a crime fighter who dressed up like a clown with like all his heroes had like gas guns, and they were all Robin Hood types. But I'd love to see there's a very famous shot from like Street and Smith, one of the Crimson Clown stories, where it's a guy in a red clown outfit, full makeup. He's got like a glass of bourbon, and he's just looking straight ahead. But Macaulay Zorro turned out to be kind of the surprise hit, where The Curse of Capistrano was published as a pickup novel, where they took all the stories. It was serialized, so they took it up in a book. It was later reissued as The Mark of Zorro. And I think that was around 20 when Douglas Fairbanks did the first Mark of Zorro.
That's what I heard. That the movie came out around the same time that they republished.
So by the time this movie comes around, the book has been around for 20 years. And the way that Macaulay did it was he pulled from a lot of back in the 1900s, they had what were called story papers and dime novels. And dime novels focused on Wild West heroes. And so what Macaulay did was he pulled on a lot of these trends and themes to develop his hero. And a lot of character, and a lot of figures that we wouldn't know, but who kind of did similar things in California. Just as The Curse of Capistrano and The Mark of Zorro would later influence Bill Finger in writing Batman, in the creation of Batman. And so that's why in the 70s, a lot of Batman writers would do is they'd have he and his parents coming out from The Mark of Zorro, because that was their way of kind of saying, keeping the Zorro flame alive.
Right.
And so it's this very interesting kind of influence. And so I know that Jewel likes to talk about how the Shadow ripped off the Batman, but it's part of that whole. This is how you create fiction: is you take all these disparate elements and you put them together. And I think Zorro. I think the reason why I think he made such a splash is that it's right after World War I. I mean, it's a war that the U.S. was barely in, but we're starting to head into the Roaring '20s. it takes place in a historical period and place where, for a lot of people, it would have seemed exotic.
Mhm.
And plus, it's basically a guy in a mask and a sword causing trouble. I mean, what more do you need?
Right. And he's also doing it as an underdog. You know, he's doing it single-handedly against this massive sort of government, evil, corrupt system. So I think that was probably, as it always has been, it's a popular concept, the Robin Hood concept, if you will.
Yeah, because I
It's
think
very Robin
Prohibition.
Hood.
Yeah, because I think also Prohibition started, I think, in like what, 1920, 21?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Batman, Billfinger, Bob Kane, ripped off of The Shadow. Point blank. It's very simple.
No. Let's.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Cross-pollination.
Okay.
And here's why. Here's why. Partners Apparel, don't they stop an evil clown in that? Yeah. Oh,
No, okay,
they
Joel,
stop
let
an
me
evil
stop you right
clown.
there. Let me stop you right there. There's a kernel of truth to what you're saying, but you don't know what you're talking about. They did take elements from the pulp, Partners in Peril, and they used it in the first Batman story in Detective Comics number 27. But let me also point out that at the time, Jewel, everybody was borrowing from everybody else and saying, well, they ripped off the Shadow. I know you're going to tell me how I'm wrong about this, but you know what? Making statements like that, especially since, you're basically it. By that token, Dark Shadows, your boy Dan Curtis, he ripped off every single horror. Every single horror. He ripped off Mary Shelley. He ripped off Bram Stoker. He ripped off H.P. Lovecraft. He ripped off Shirley Jackson. When you say things like that, Joel, there's no way around it. It's like this is how storytelling works. Okay.
Yeah, it's an alteration too. It's always a hybridization. It's a cross-pollination, and it's done in different contexts. And the word "ripoff" implies that people are stealing from each other. And there's the old joke that comedians say, "We steal from each other." Well, it's actually the same thing that's going on, unless it's an outright literal stealing of a joke or something like that. People get inspired by different characters. I mean, the Joker in Batman, if you want to look at it that way, is a ripoff of the Man Who Smiles.
A Man Who Laughs.
The rictus grin of that movie, that character in that movie, is the direct inspiration for the Joker.
Two things. I'm not saying Walter B. Gibson didn't know about it. He actually did know about it because he commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, my biggest issue with DC, Billfinger and Bob Kane too, they have tried for years to cover up the fact that Batman had a gun, had a piece. And that's one of my biggest issues too. So
they never covered it up. They just said at one point they said Batman doesn't use guns. Let's move on. That's the truth.
Yeah, there was a change in the character's general attitude, that he was not going to be a vigilante in that respect. He wasn't going to be shooting.
And I think we should probably get back to the Marcus Zorro, because I think we're putting Patrick asleep.
That's good. I'm enjoying it.
He already
is month rest I've gotten all day.
And
he's in recline, not decline.
To quote the creators of Batman, the reason they gave Batman a piece, to quote them, the Shadow has a gun.
Right. Sure. No doubt. And other heroic characters would have guns after that too.
You know who else had guns? The Spider.
Lone Ranger.
The Masked Rider. The Lone Ranger.
Little Orphan Annie.
Joel, let me remind you of something.
No,
I am drinking liquid death. Okay.
You
may think you're getting one up on me, but you know what? No. As a good friend of mine once said, I can turn outright contempt into an art form. I'm the kind of person where if you want to F around, you definitely don't want to do it around me, because you will find out.
Fuck around and find out.
There are 3 people who've lost their jobs because they tried to do that to me. Seriously. Let's go back to
I
Marcus
don't have
Zorro.
I don't have a
Okay.
job to lose.
Out
It's
of the
okay.
night.
How about that
Um,
Tyrone Power? What a guy, huh?
I don't have a job to lose. It's okay.
Oh, but let's just say that one morning you may find yourself covered in dirt, and Julie will wake up next to a duffel bag full of unmarked, unsequential $100 bills. All I'm saying, you don't want to go there, Joel.
Okay. Oh my god. So The Mark of Zorro, really, really good movie, by the way. The cinematography in this movie is really outstanding. What did you guys think?
It's a great movie. I mean, it's too bad that the Tubi version's in black and white or in color
It's in colorized,
because
but
it's not supposed to be.
fortunately, you can sort of visualize that after seeing as many colorized films and then in black and white as I have. I can visualize the black
Yeah,
and white.
or you can do some digging and like see if there's a black and white version on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah,
I wish is there? I shouldn't
I
have been
didn't
such a
even check.
lazy bones.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
No
that's
problem.
on me because I gave you a link to the Tubi one. Had I known, I would have looked on YouTube and say, "Hey, it's in black and white."
I can imagine it in black and white.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
it's
it's
not the end of the world.
no the the pacing of the thing is fantastic. From the interiors to the exteriors, you're going from 0 to 60, and it's great. Any kid going to see this movie is not going to be bored.
Oh,
Any
this would have
adult
blown the
going to see-
mind of any kid who saw this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But any adult's going to feel the same way too. I mean, they're going to get stimulation. They're going to get a little romance. They're going to get intrigue. Plus,
Linda Darnell,
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Eugene Pellette.
Yes, yes, the curvaceous Eugene Pellette.
Eugene
But
Paulette, the
it's
proto Thayer David.
He really was. He would have made a great Professor Stokes.
he was ubiquitous. Although I will say, I think Thea David was more versatile, but
Yeah, he was a
in
Harvard
terms of the
man.
ubiquity, yeah, absolutely. And he was a incredibly popular character actor of his time as well, and rightly so. He spices everything he's in. I mean, he's fantastic. But Tyrone Power is great. You were right. To go back to what you were saying earlier, Jewel, about his ability to sort of play the alter ego and to do it smoothly. It's all very slyly done. He doesn't. There's no scene in which he says, "I must pretend to be a cowardly
No,
father."
he just
Just
slips into it.
slides right into it as soon as he hears what's going on.
He's a regular George Hamilton that way.
Yeah, and especially that the first time he does it because Basil Rathbone's character says, "Oh yeah, I'm good with a sword." So he it's like he knows, okay, I can't be super macho. Let's
Right.
play it this way.
Yeah.
And I also think too, this movie, he really shows why he gets cast in later movies, because he's also he can also be funny as
He's
out
very
of,
funny.
not just in the Zorro mask, but outside of it too.
Right. Sure.
And to have that go both ways, Tyrone Power, hell of an actor.
Mm-hmm. He does a great job. He was an incredibly popular matinee idol type actor of his time, but he obviously in this movie he plays levels, and he plays it. I mean, it's the style. It's the 1940s style, but he's there. What depth there is to have, he's got it.
It's
Yeah,
modulated.
yeah. I mean, it's also hard to believe that. I'm not sure if it was before or after he does Nightmare Alley, which is a completely different role.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow, what range. I had forgotten about that. And that was Tyrone Power. And he's magnificent in both. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a very intricate, nuanced performance.
By the way, I sent in the chat a link to the black and white 1940s Zorro if you want to watch it.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Cool.
So it is on YouTube, like Gordon said. It wasn't hard to find.
Good.
I did not look for this movie on National Art on the archives. I did find it on Tubi, like you guys did in color, but I will admit this was my first in color watch, because like you gentlemen, I watched it in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I was as shocked as you guys that it was in color.
Yeah, I knew it was colorized immediately because of the sort of muted tones of some of the.
I thought it was some weird two-strip process at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen a colorized movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been since maybe 1986 when Ted
Yeah.
Turner was colorizing everything.
Yeah. Yeah. He went to town on his library.
I used to shock film fans by saying I would only watch Citizen Kane colorized. that was one of my first troll maneuvers.
I was about to say that must have gotten some horrified responses from people.
I think they knew no one could sanely be saying such a thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, very funny.
Yeah.
Rathbone's heavy in this movie is really good too.
Well, he specializes in it.
He's genius at it.
Yeah, it's and I think it's actually one of the things that gives him an edge as Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Because his Sherlock Holmes has that sense of danger.
He does. He's not. Yeah. He's not a an everyman gee whiz hero type, and never could be because of his general attitude, and also because of his South African / British background, he was going to be playing these shady / effete classist type characters, which he typically did. But he was also probably the best swordsman in Hollywood at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant, and made other people look really good that weren't as good as he was.
Well, the cameraman kind of helped by undercranking in certain scenes.
Absolutely, and you can also, the although I think the frame rate was the integrity of the frame rate was okay, because it didn't look like they were speeding things up. It looked like they just went at it in a couple of instances.
Yeah, we need more fencing type sword fights in movies. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Because they're fast enough where you can get excited, but you can actually see action and movement.
Yeah, that's what I love about the Three Musketeers, the '70s Three Musketeers movies are great.
Well, now those, and that's where I found out about the undercranking. Was Christopher Lee in one of the making of interviews talks about that, and he said we didn't do that in our movie.
Yeah, frame rate was there are certain movies you can see where the frame rate's been toyed with in order to make it look a little faster and more exciting. But yeah,
Basil Rathbone was a 2-time fencing champion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Which would make sense.
Surprise.
I mean,
he was brilliant.
I mean, back at that time with the studio system, I think a lot of actors, if you didn't know how to fence, you had, as part of your contract, you had to take fencing lessons.
Mm-hmm. Because they were making all of these costume type movies where they were typically, if you were male, you were going to end up doing some kind of sword play or something.
I wonder if at this time, if you were at a party, if some drunk guy would approach Basil Rathbone and say, "Hey man, you know what? I can do that fencing thing. Let's fight. Yeah, give me a sword. Yeah, we'll do it."
Sure.
Speaking of circumcision.
Yes. There'd be some slicing and dicing going on.
Could you imagine if the '91 revival of DS would have stayed on the air, and the guy who played Jeremiah does dual roles, that he goes on to do? He does the '91 series, and then he turns around and does. Yeah, he does. If he would have if it would have stayed on, if he would have did both, like that and Highlander, because he was a sword master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't think he would have been able to do both.
Adrian Paul.
Yeah.
Adrian Paul's a sword master.
I think realistically, if there were a second season of Dark Shadows, more than likely he would have been forced to sign a contract. And I don't know production-wise if they would have been able to do it.
Been offered Highlander.
Quentin. I heard he was supposed to play Quentin.
Yes, that's.
But you know what? I who I think really should have played Quentin if there had been a year 2 DS, and a lot of you are gonna argue with me on this. Michael T. Weiss, the guy who played Joe Haskell.
He would have been fabulous.
Because one, he's a good actor, and two, it would have been such a mind trip. Because for years we watched as actors play different roles, and someone said, "Oh, hey, you look like this person." Imagine Quentin with no memory coming in looking like Joe Haskell, and everyone's like, "You're Joe Haskell, but you died." And he's like, "No, I know I don't know who I am, but I'm not Joe Haskell. That's who I would have
Oh,
cast.
well, yeah, just have Joe Haskell instead of Grant Douglas.
Right.
He's been thinking he's Joe Haskell this whole time. He's been Quentin all along
Mm-hmm.
instead of Agatha.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. And that's the thing too. It was shocking to see them kill off Joe Haskell in the 91 revival too.
Yeah, it was kind of a bum trip, especially after the series left the original Joe Haskell in such an unsatisfying position. So.
He was getting that shock treatment, dog. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. He was going to Wycliffe, though. Back to Zorro. Sorry. I really love to get to watch this in color was fun, and it did feel a little different than obviously the black and not more visually than anything else. But I really loved how it looked though in color too. Both are great. No, you can't go wrong either way.
It's a 40s extravaganza, and I love the fact that it's drenched in that era. It really
Which studio made this?
20th Century Fox.
Okay. Yeah, it's a shame that that they did not intentionally do it as a color production, because their color was always the most intense and saturated and psychedelic of any of the studios.
Well, they're black and white though. Well,
everybody's black and white was good.
Some of their black and white movies are good. Just some of their actors felt they didn't always have the best script, though. I don't really think the movies that Henry Fonda was in were as bad as he thinks they were.
But Henry Fonda never played Zorro.
No, I know, but he was under contract at 20th Century Fox.
The studio system cranked out a heck of a lot of movies, and so you'd get some really fine actors in hit or miss productions.
Yeah, think of it this way, Jewel. In the 40s, the studio system, in terms of like scripts and getting movies out, is kind of like Dark Shadows. Because you need a steady supply of scripts. Every day is a different script. Every day you've got different actors. It wasn't like the writers were not thinking of great art. They were thinking more like, oh crap, we don't want dead air on Thursday.
Yeah.
And we don't want a studio dark at any particular time, because that's going to cost us a whole lot of money if we're not using it.
So pay the rent.
Yeah.
Well, just something I had felt when I first watched a lot of the older Henry Fonda movies from the 30s and 40s. He felt that because he was going to literally join the Navy because he was that disappointed in the roles he was getting, but they stopped him from doing it. And it's like, that's crazy. And when I watch him, I'm thinking, these movies really aren't that bad as he thinks they are. I can understand why he's frustrated with the roles he's getting, but they're not bad.
Yeah, but he never played Zorro or Batman.
No, he never did play Zorro or Batman.
Wherever there's a guy dressed up like a clown, I'll be there.
With my sword and mask. Maybe a pistol.
Definitely a pistol. For sure. This movie has great sword fighting sequences, obviously. I love how Tyrone Power, though, he comes across very intimidating, which I love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when a guy throws a sword up and it sticks in the ceiling, Jewel, that's not meant to be gentle. That's his way of saying, this is how tough I am.
Mm-hmm.
Been getting a lot of practice, Gordon.
Jewel, have you been smoking crack again?
Okay.
Just having fun.
Off the end of a competition A-pay sword, yes.
Yeah.
And just aside for those watching, if you can explain what Jewel's trying to do here when he's making these weird comments to me, please leave them in the comments, because I'm not getting it.
Well, here's the thing. When you watch this movie and you see like somebody throw a sword in the ceiling, it's really impressive to show that they're making a statement. not just about themselves, but about like what they stand for.
Metaphysical statement.
Right. It's really cool.
And they're not going to put up with sassy ceilings.
Yeah.
They're going to teach that ceiling a lesson.
That's right.
And also keep in mind, this is just a year. This was released just a year before Pearl Harbor. So you've got that, that kind of attitude of, you've got someone coming in, kind of being a bit of a dictator, and at one point, the Rathbone, the underling, the guy who took over Don Diego's position, is saying, "Hey, we've got all the it's not just the brigands, we've got the caballeros around us." And to translate, it's not just the criminals and the poor people, it's like the knights, the people.
Everybody's basically against them and grumbling about the taxes and the corruption and everything else. And
this is basically everyone's like, okay, this is what we're going to do to Hitler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely on everybody's mind. It was part of the zeitgeist at that point in time, and had been for a couple of years. What's going on in Europe? What's going on in Europe? So, and we're talking about screenwriters. We're talking about literate people who, are keeping up with the news and keeping up with what's going on in the world. So, yep, absolutely.
So, I have a question for you guys with the Zorros, because with the Amazon Zorro, that's a bit different even than this one. With those books, because I've never read any of them, did they ever have Zorro as like where the spirit of Zorro could enter another person and become Zorro?
I think Zorro entered other people.
Yeah.
But
especially the Duenas, especially the Duenas.
I don't know. Did the ghost of Zorro ever?
I read the first novel, The Curse of Capistrano. It's actually pretty good. It's a nice, solid. I think different productions of Zorro kind of do different twists on it, mostly because it's like Zorro is one of those. It's a very Zorro. Some of the works that feature Zorro, like The Curse of Capistrano, are public domain, which means you can reprint those anywhere. The character of Zorro, the trademarks are owned by a company. So if you wanted to do, say, like if you wanted to write a Zorro novel, and you couldn't just go and say it's public domain, because it's actually, the rights are tied up in court. So a lot of companies are doing if we can license Zorro, we'll just put in our own stuff so that way we're not, we're safe. So I don't think there's ever been a book where Zorro's spirit enters other people. Like the 90s Zorro with Antonio Banderas, it's like, it's a thief inspired by the older Zorro who's trained. But so it's like there's like a French version from the mid 70s, which is supposed to be funny. And it's just, no, it's not.
Well, there's Zorro the Gay Blade.
Yes.
Well, that's not the one I'm talking about. This is a French version, but I know the one you're talking about, Patrick.
Well, when I say spirit, I should have been more specific. I'm not meaning a literal ghost.
That revolutionary thing. Somebody inspires. Zorro inspires somebody else to pick up the sword and the mask.
Yeah, that'd be the 90s version, I think, because it's a generational thing where the spirit's picked up by the sun and it goes on from there.
Well, in the Amazon series, the spirit, like Zorro, is chosen by the spirit in a lot of ways. It's really an amazing. That's why I like watching it too. It is different, as Gordon points out. And you should have a different twist on Zorro if you're going to do it. But with this movie, guys, what's something that shocked you when you first saw it?
I think the thing that strikes me is when Tyrone Don Diego actually Tyrone Power actually stabs Basil Rathbone, and you see the blood.
Yeah.
Like usually most films of that time, it would be it might be shot from the back, or you might get it might be shot in silhouette, because you just after 33, you've got the Hays Code where certain things you just don't show. Not so that is that shocked me.
Yeah, and up to
Because-
that point, really, until he has the conversation with his fiance about, I might have to kill somebody, he really didn't do that. He beat
No,
up
here's-
the guy, and that was it.
well, actually, he was talking about killing her uncle, which is
Right.
why he wanted her permission,
Right,
because
but
it's
I
like,
mean, up to that conversation, that didn't even enter the picture for him to kill anybody. He wasn't trying to kill anybody. He was trying to intimidate people, embarrass them, drive them away, that kind of thing. And at that point, because you're dealing with the uber villain of the movie, his choices are kind of limited by the time he accepts the challenge, because he knows that he's going to try to kill him. So, but yeah, it is. It's shocking because up to that point, it's almost like a code against killing that he has, at least in terms of his behavior.
Mhm.
I think it's a purpose because in a duel, I mean, I think even before he gets tossed that sword, I think he's made a decision. Okay, I know I'm going to have to kill this guy.
Yeah, if
I
he's
don't think he has a problem with it either.
at that point, I don't think he does. No, I think because we're dealing with the uber villain, and the story has written this guy in as being, kind of the power behind the ineffective throne, and he's corrupt, and he wants to steal the church coffers. He wants to do all this nasty stuff. He wants to possess the girl at one point. He's mad because she's not going out riding with him at one point. So there's all of that stuff going on. I mean, the guy becomes the typical thing is his face is so punchable. Well, this guy is so killable at that point. So
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Patrick. Was there something that shocked you in this movie, or?
Well, I mean, just the raw erotic power of Eugene Paulette.
it's true.
Come back to
Yeah,
it again and again. Smoke show.
that's my number two. You always it sometimes slips from memory when you see it. Eugene Paulette. I mean, total smoke show.
It is. He's styling that robe to a point where it's
Yes.
just,
Oh my god. Yeah. Here's a question for you guys, because rewatching this movie, I noticed even more so here that I knew eventually that he gives the priest the coins, but when he comes back from like the military that he's in, it seemed like the priest had higher purpose for him. I'm not meaning like become a
Yes,
priest.
he did.
he did.
He
Yeah.
expected much more of him than
Yeah.
what apparently he turned out to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
This-
Don Diego's playing vapid and superficial. When he's really a man of very, very deep convictions, very deep morality, and it's when he reveals to the monk that he's Zorro and he's behind it. The monk's like, "Oh yeah, I'm proud of you."
Yeah, because
That was a great
this
moment.
this is a monk that is not your typical just hang out in the monastery.
No,
The
he's
guy's
beating
an
the
This is
crap
a
out of people.
bloodthirsty monk.
he's an activist, and he is bloodthirsty. He wants to kill these crooks.
Could there, I'm not sure when it came up, but could there have been some inspiration could the creators of Robin Hood maybe have got Friar Tuck from this priest at all?
Well, the writers
No, that predated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Robin Hood
may have
predated.
drawn something from that character.
Okay.
It was.
I think they probably got some
Movie, I
inspiration from
think.
Friar Tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be easy to see it as you want that kind of perception of man of God who can kind of approve, who's not, and I love the fact that this monk is like, like there's a scene where he's hitting people and saying, "God forgive me," hitting
Right.
somebody else, "God forgive me."
He picks up a sword at one point too. So he's a man of action in his own right. He's not some little milquetoast monastery guy.
What's you guys' favorite scene in this movie?
The jailbreak.
Yeah, the magic trick in the jailbreak, and just the all of the people in there.
That's
There's a sense of real danger and exhilaration in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When the peons come in, and all of a sudden they're somehow enabled with everybody has a weapon in their hands. So
They do. They all have swords. I love it.
it's incredible. It's almost like some weird dream sequence that was cut out of Waiting for Lefty, where they're all going for the Union. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a really cool scene. It's very fun.
Yeah. I really love what they do with the horses in this movie. And as somebody who built hay on a horse farm and knows a very elderly woman who still owns a horse farm and watched her work with horses for many, many years, it's amazing to see. Because a lot of work goes into it.
That's what you said
Whoever
about
was doing
Catherine the Great.
equestrian on that film did a really good job. And they had a big job. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks good too. I mean, the animals.
Oh, he goes over the bridge.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a hell of a stunt.
Yeah.
Like when people work with animals, you get a deeper appreciation of the people who come in who train the animal, and it's nice. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions, guys. Is there anything you want to add?
Well, it's a great movie. People should go see it. It's 10 out of 10.
It's cool. It's a high caliber, what I call a high caliber matinee movie. All the good people, the threats to them are more philosophical than physical for most of the movie. You never get the sense that these good people are going to, die or anything like that. It's good versus evil. It's a family type of situation. It's top of the line matinee type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good.
Yeah. And go watch the Zorro series on Amazon. It's in season 1. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Make it a marathon. And you know what? If you got kids, Saturday night, brew 'em a pot of coffee, go get them some smokes, make an evening of it.
Yeah.
Zorro night.
I just
Carton Terradence for the kids.
Yeah, I just showed my kids the newest Studio Ghibli movie. It's really dark. It's really good though. So, The Boy and the Heron. But good. Yeah, this movie's a 10 out of 10. So, guys, when do you want to talk this Donner Cut business?
ASA business. Jewel, you're going to really like this movie. You like Superman too.
Yeah,
You're going to like this even more.
And Jewel, this is the Donner Cut, not the Donner Party. That's something completely different.
Right. That's a different.
I know what the
I
Donner
feel
Party
like
is.
chicken tonight.
I learned about the Donner Party. Unfortunately, that's just
Was there cake at the Donner Party? I want to
Was
check
it
out
at dinner
Jewel.
theater?
Cake there?
Yes, and it involved human flesh. Anyway, God. Oh my God. Yeah. So when do you,
When are you free next?
tomorrow? I'm pretty.
Can you find it by then?
I'll try to for sure.
I think you can.
So, all right, guys. Hopefully tomorrow we'll do the Donner Cut. But if not, if I don't find the Donner Cut, let's have a backup plan.
Okay.
I've got a better idea.
Okay.
Why don't we plan to do the Donner Cut on Thursday? That way it'll give us all time to get a copy of it.
Then I got a suggestion for tomorrow.
Sure.
It's not a good movie, but it's a good movie to talk about. Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze.
Yes.
I've never seen
I
it.
thought you were going to say Dr. Detroit, which would have been.
I love Dr. Detroit.
I know, but it's
And that has a lot to do with Zorro, actually.
yes.
But
Yeah, let's yeah, I'm all I mean Doc
Doc
Savage
Savage
is one of my
being
favorite
fun.
movies, even though it's not good, but
me too. Yeah, I
I've
feel
never
the same
seen
way.
it. Where can I find it?
Oh, I'm sure it's out there.
It's not anything anybody's trying to make a whole lot of money off of right now. So it's being readily available.
I have a
Hold on,
Saturday.
you're a brick.
I do have a Saturday suggestion for you guys, and it's easy.
Okay.
To find. If you're interested, is Hobo with a Shotgun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
okay. Well, Doc Savage is available on Movies Anywhere, just letting you all
Okay.
know.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
I have a copy on Amazon, so I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give it a watch for tomorrow night, and I'll in the
Right.
process to track down Superman.
It's not obscure. It's not
Alright.
obscure. You should be able to find it.
I probably will. All right. Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page, link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound, link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel, Collins Port After Dark. Gentlemen, you have a lovely, lovely night and take care.
Sniff wisely.
Bye, guys.